So welcome, I'm Alessandra. I'm one of the study abroad advisors here at Middlebury, and I work with the Middlebury School in Italy. And so today I wanted to give you a brief overview of the program, the different options that you have to study in Italy with Middlebury, and hopefully answer some of your questions about the application process. So we'll go over the 3 different sites that we have at our school in Italy. We'll talk about the academic program. We'll review briefly some of the big pieces of the program. So what housing looks like, what you can expect in terms of costs and things to keep in mind when you're budgeting. We'll address the big question, whether to go abroad for a whole year or just an academic semester. And then we'll look at the application process and some next steps that you might want to take if you'd like to go to Italy. So what is the school in Italy? Our overarching principle or goal is to provide guided immersion in the Italian education system and in Italian education itself. So what that means is we prioritize cultural and linguistic immersion. We do have students abide by the Middlebury Language Pledge, which, if you're not familiar with that, is basically a promise to speak only Italian while you're on the program. So both in and out of class with friends, roommates, everyday people that you might encounter, you'll be speaking in Italian. There are exceptions to that, of course. If there's an emergency, by all means, use English or whichever language you're more comfortable to communicate what you need. Likewise, too, you can still talk with family and friends at home in whichever language you prefer. If you do that, though, we just ask that you do that out of earshot from other program participants so that they can maintain their pledge as well. We also really want you to be able to make the experience what you want it to be. So there will be a basic structure and some sort of baseline expectations, going to class, being respectful residents in your apartments or your homestays, attending orientation. But beyond those, we want you to have the time and space to do what is most meaningful to you. And so there are lots of different ways to get involved and to structure your time so that you can make that happen. The headquarters of our program is in Florence. We have our sede there, which is our center. It's our physical presence in the city. So the offices of our 3 full-time staff members are there. We have some classrooms and a small library. So for those students studying in Florence, you will be connected with the sede and doing some of your work there. But we do have 3 sites that you can choose from, and they're all very different, and there are pros and cons to all 3. So as you're thinking about what you might want from your study abroad experience, it's good to think about how your goals fit into the 3 site options that we have. So aside from Florence, which was our first site, we have Ferrara, which is a small college town, if you will, in Emilia-Romagna, close to Bologna. And then we have a site in Rome, which of course is the capital. The basic academic structure of the program is you take a total of 3 courses while you're in Italy. That does equate to a full semester of Middlebury credit. So you will get 4 units of credit for your semester there. Typically, you would take 1 course that's organized by Middlebury. So usually it's like a literature and culture course, or it could focus on art history or film. And then your other courses would be taken either at the local host university, or if you want to do an internship for credit, you can, and that would replace one of your university courses. We spoke about the language pledge already, but that is a predominant feature of the program. So, if you do language tables or activities with the Italian House, or if you have a chance to attend language school during the summer here at Middlebury, those are all really great ways to practice studying and living under the language pledge. A little more about Florence. It's a relatively small city, very lively. There's lots going on, but population-wise and geographically, it's actually not that big of a city. It's the capital of the Tuscan region and is known as the jewel of the Renaissance. So students who are especially interested in history, art history, architecture, are really drawn to Florence for this reason. As I mentioned before, our sede is there. We have 3 full-time staff members who all work from the sede in Florence. We also tend to host the most students there. We have anywhere between 10, 15, upwards to 20 undergraduate students there every semester. And then we can have anywhere from, 3 or 4 all the way up to maybe 10 graduate students there every year as well. One thing that is unique about our program in Florence is that we also offer different levels of language to our undergraduate students. Being that Middlebury College as an institution has a policy that we want students to have a certain level of proficiency before going abroad, our students are always going to be placed into the advanced level, and we'll go more into those requirements in a moment. But if you're there, you'll likely meet students from other universities and colleges who maybe took 1 year of Italian and so they're at an intermediate level, or are perhaps learning Italian for the very first time and so they're a pure beginner. Regardless of the level that you're placed at, everyone, again, is still under the language pledge and working together to improve their Italian proficiency. As I mentioned before, Florence is really great for students who are interested in art and art history, likewise political science, literature. The host university offers a wide variety of courses in the humanities and social sciences in particular. There's a pretty landscape there for you. Ferrara, as I mentioned, is quite a bit smaller, so really a large town more than a city. It's close to Bologna, as I mentioned. It's about a 20 to 30-minute train ride away, so pretty accessible, but day to day, you're going to have more of a small town, college town experience. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and part of that is thanks to this beautiful castle that is right in the middle of the downtown area of Ferrara. So that is a really neat feature, especially if you're interested in architecture, history. We tend to host a smaller number of students there every semester, usually around 2 to 5, although it can vary. One thing to know, especially about Ferrara, is that we don't have any full-time staff there, and we don't have a sede there the way we do in Florence. You will have somebody who is designated as a resource for you by Middlebury. We sometimes refer to them as your guardian angel there in the city, and they will be a person that will check in with you, who you can contact if you have questions. But again, day to day, you're going to have a more maybe independent experience just by nature of the fact that there isn't a Middlebury center there in the city. One thing I want to mention too is that because Ferrara is relatively small, there are hospitals and clinics and doctors' offices there, absolutely, but the services available in English are quite limited. And so if you are somebody who anticipates needing consistent care or want to know that there are medical services available in English in your host city, then Ferrara may not be the best fit for you. If you really want to be there, but also think you might need to access medical services on a regular basis and want to do so in English, Bologna is an option for you as well. And again, it's about a 20 to 30-minute train ride away. As I mentioned, it's a great place for students interested in architecture. The University of Ferrara, which is our host university there, offers a really good program in architecture. It's also great for students interested in economics and science and other disciplines. And there's that famous castle. And then finally, Rome. So big city, much, much bigger than both Florence and Ferrara. The capital, obviously, and as I'm sure you know, there are tons of historical sites and architectural sites as well that you can really take advantage of if you're there. Again, we don't tend to host as many students in Rome on a semester to semester basis. It tends to be about the same as Ferrara, with anywhere between 2 to 5 students per semester. Also, like for no full-time staff on site, so no sede. So you again will have sort of this guardian angel, this person that we designate as your contact person. For both Ferrara and Rome, also, you will be visited by the program director and other program staff periodically throughout the semester. You are always connected via phone, email, Zoom, Skype. So if you need something, you can, of course, reach out to them in Florence. Just know that they're in Florence. And so if they are traveling to you, it may take a day for them to get to you, but you will have this guardian angel on site as well. And it's really a great location academically for most disciplines. We partner with Sapienza, which is the University of Rome in the city, and it has a really wide variety of academic offerings to choose from. Okay, so we've talked a bunch about the academic program already. Just a couple other things to note. For students who are interested in studio art in Florence, you can also choose to attend the Accademia di Belle Arti, which is studio art only. You do have to have a background in the media that you want to study. So if you want to study painting, you need to have done some preliminary painting courses at your home institution, but that is an option for you if you're interested. For all of your university courses, there will be a complimentary seminar that goes along with it. This seminar is arranged by Middlebury, and it's meant to provide some extra academic support throughout the semester. You'll have a few assignments and an instructor working with you to go over material and help you prepare for the final exam. As I mentioned, one of your courses will be a Middlebury-led course that will focus on some aspect of language and literature and culture. And then you can opt to do an internship for credit, as I mentioned previously. For students interested in food studies or food systems, you can also choose to do a food studies track, which is a specialized track in Florence. This would have you taking a course at the University of Florence focused on some aspect of food studies, and then an internship related to food studies as well. So if you're interested in that, there's this place on your application to indicate that. Internships, the only other thing to know about these that I haven't mentioned already is that you do need to apply ahead of time, and there's a pretty strict deadline for the internships. Placements can be a little bit limited, so you want to make sure that your application is submitted on time so that we have plenty of time to find you a placement. For those of you, especially those of you studying abroad in the spring semester, if you want to stay, often you have some flexibility with your student visa so that you can stay a little bit after the program ends. And if that's the case and you want to, you can also explore the opportunity for a summer internship in Italy. These would be arranged and managed through the CCI, but they strongly encourage students to take advantage of this, especially because they have funding that is especially earmarked for students interning in Italy. So, they're always looking for applicants to take advantage of this. And it's a really nice way to extend your time in the country as well, beyond just the semester, or even if you're there for the whole academic year and you want to stay just a little bit longer, you can take advantage of that. I want to touch very briefly on student visas, just because it's important to keep in mind as you're making your plans for your junior year. Unless you're an Italian citizen, you do need to apply for a student visa. And I have a little asterisk there. I'll skip ahead to that. So this includes those of you who may be dual EU citizens, so EU and another citizenship. If you're not an Italian citizen, we strongly recommend applying for an Italian student visa on your non-EU passport. And the reason for this is that non-Italian EU citizens have to go through a residency registration process once they get to Italy, which can be somewhat complicated, especially if you're living with homestay families. So it's actually easier in the long run to use your non-EU passport if you're not an Italian citizen. The process can be somewhat lengthy, so this is what you want to keep in mind as you're making your plans. The process, especially if you go through the group application process, can take upwards of 6 to 8 weeks. You have to be without your passport for that amount of time because you send it to the consulate so that they can process your application. So you don't want to have any other travel plans for the 2 to 3 months before you're planning to be in Italy. And the timeframes are listed there on the slide. So if you're going to be abroad in the spring, that means November to January, you need to be prepared to be without a passport. Likewise for fall semester, June through August would be that time frame. If you have concerns about this, please let me know. But otherwise, just keep this in mind as you're looking ahead. Okay, so your housing also varies by location. If you're going to Ferrara, you can choose to live in a dorm. The dorm availability varies semester to semester, but it can be a really great option because it allows you to meet a lot of other local students. You can live in homestays or shared apartments. Likewise, Florence, you can opt for a homestay or shared apartment. And in Rome, it's just apartments right now. You also can choose if you would like to pre-select, which means that you would receive a list of, or I'm sorry, rather you would fill out a questionnaire for us and the staff in Italy would match you with an available homestay or apartment based on your preferences. Or if you would rather, you can find your own housing. So you can wait and get to Italy and do a housing search on your own. Usually students who are opting for that option are doing so because they want to live in an apartment. The one rule that applies to everybody, regardless of situation and how you find your housing, is that you must live with native Italian speakers. So, you know, you wouldn't be able to live with other American exchange students or other international exchange students if nobody was a native Italian speaker. All right. Semester versus a whole year, which one is right for you? There are pros and cons to both. One thing that's good to think about is the academic calendar. It does mirror the academic calendar at Middlebury pretty closely. So if you're going abroad in fall, you're going to be there at least until the winter holidays in December. For many of you taking courses at the host university, your exams will actually take place in January. You know, if you are able to and you want to, you can, you know, go home for the holidays and go back, but you will have to go back to take your exams. So again, keep that in mind as you're making plans. Spring, you would arrive in Italy early February, and you would be there through mid to late June in most cases, again, because of the exam period. Those of you who would like to go to the academia and take fine arts or studio art courses, your exams could extend into mid-July. So keep that in mind as you're making summer plans. There are a lot of benefits to going abroad for a full year. Language process is probably language progress is probably one of the biggest. You know, the more time you spend in Italy, the better your Italian will be, the easier it will be to live, you know, in Italian and study in Italian. It also gives you time to settle into the culture. Often students find that they spend their first semester really getting to know the city, getting used to speaking Italian all the time, meeting people. And then it's the second semester when they can really take advantage of all that investment and hard work, and they feel settled and feel like they're at home during that second semester. It doesn't mean though that, you know, you shouldn't only go for a semester if that's what's going to work best for you, schedule-wise, academic-wise. There are a ton of benefits to being abroad for a semester as well. But if you can go for the year and you're thinking about it, I would strongly encourage you to consider it because of all the advantages that there are. There are lots of other things to consider when choosing a site, and we'll talk with our returnees in just a little bit about how they made their decisions. But, you know, thinking about what subjects you would like to study, especially since not all academic subjects are available at all sites. How much social support or networked support you would like to have. There's no right or wrong to that, but again, keeping in mind, we've got our full-time staff in our sede in Florence, and then in Rome and Ferrara, we have our guardian angels, but not a physical presence the way we do in Florence. Likewise, what type of living situation do you prefer? If you really want to live with a homestay family, that means that Rome may not be the best option for you. What your goals are for your study abroad experience, what type of city you would like to live in. Looking at the School in Italy website, reading up on the different sites can be really helpful. But I think one of the most helpful things to do is to talk with your Italian professors and program alums about their experiences and their impressions of the different options to see which seems like it will be the right fit for you. And it's really important to pick what is right for you. You may have friends who are thinking about one location, and while that sounds great, you really feel like a different location would be a better fit. Go with your gut and choose the site and the setup that's going to make sense for you. Okay, just a few things about financial considerations as well. So you want to budget expecting to spend about the same amount of money in Italy as you do during a typical semester at Middlebury. The semester tuition is listed on the slide there. It's also on our dates and fees webpage. The only thing that you're going to be billed for your semester in Italy are the tuition and a study abroad fee, which all students at Middlebury are charged when they go abroad. Everything else is considered out of pocket, and it's called out of pocket because you pay for it as you go throughout the semester rather than being billed for it all at once at the beginning. So that includes your housing, your personal expenses, books, all of the other things that you might need. We share a list of estimated costs with Student Financial Services at the beginning of every year, and they use that to calculate students' financial aid packages. So if you receive aid and want to have a sense of how much you might be able to expect for your semester or your year abroad, please make sure to speak with Student Financial Services ahead of time so that you have a good idea of what to expect. I also wanted to just briefly mention that we have a section on our website that is dedicated to resources surrounding diversity and identity in study abroad. This is a really important subject and thing to consider as you're choosing your study abroad destination. Really, it could be its own info session, so this one slide is not going to do the topic justice, but I wanted to at least introduce it here. So we have resources on our website for students who identify with any number of different communities, so students of color, students living with chronic medical conditions or disabilities, students who are members of different religious groups and organizations. So if you have questions, you may find it helpful to go to that website and just look around and see what's listed there. We also keep lists of students who have self-identified as members of these different communities and who are happy to talk with prospective students about their experiences. So if that would be helpful at all, feel free to let us know at any point and we can connect you. And the Go link is go/SA/diversity for that page. All right, so your application requirements, you do need to have declared your major before you apply, and that's because we're going to need approval from your major advisor regarding your academic plans. The GPA requirements are that you need to have a B- average overall or 2.67 overall, and then a B or 3.0 in both your major courses and in your Italian courses. You want to have completed at least Italian 252, but you also need to make sure that you take an Italian course the semester before you go abroad. So for some of you, that might mean taking a 300 level if you finished 252 earlier. You'll need to request a recommendation from both your major advisor and your most recent Italian professor. The recommendations are just preset forms that are in the study abroad portal. So this isn't a formal letter. You would just pop in their email address and they'll be sent a link to the form to complete. The language course enrollment, which is really important. You need to make sure that you have room in your schedule for that this semester before you go. And as I mentioned before, language school, it really is excellent preparation for going abroad. You are living and studying under the language pledge just as you would be during the academic year in Italy. So it's great practice for that. And you can do it whether or not you need it to help you, make it through 252 or beyond before going. So I would strongly recommend that you consider it. There is financial aid available for the language schools as well. It's usually, it's need-based on a first-come, first-served basis. So the best thing to do is get an application in early so that your application can be considered for financial aid as well. I believe that the applications will open November 2nd this year, so just keep an eye on the language school website over the next few weeks. And then the big deadline to keep in mind is February 1st. So that will be your application deadline for next year, so 21-22, regardless of whether you want to go abroad in fall or spring of next year. If you haven't met with your major advisor already or don't have plans to do so, just make sure that you have a chance to connect with them by January at the latest so that they know what you're planning and they can give you advice from an academic perspective of what might work best for you. When you open your application in the portal, you'll see the places there to initiate the recommendations that I mentioned. We'll also ask for a personal statement, which is a 500 or so word statement, just talking about why you want to go to Italy, what your motivations are, what your background is in terms of language study and any other courses that you might have taken. And then we'll need a scan of your passport. If you're an international student, we'll also need a scan of your F1 visa and your I-20. And then there will be some questionnaires for you related to some university registration things and some other things as well. So as I said, it's really worth the time to talk to different people about their impressions, especially program alums. We have 2 alums with us today who will be able to tell us more about their experiences. And then by all means, you are welcome to come and meet with me. I'm happy to tell you more about the application process, about the academic options and the other features of the different locations. I'm taking appointments via Zoom and phone this semester, and you can go to our online appointment scheduler on our website and pick a time that works best for you to connect. One thing to keep in mind too is double check your passport, take a look at the expiration date. Your passport needs to be valid for at least 6 months beyond your last day in Italy. So if you are coming up maybe within the next 18 to 24 months and your passport will need to be renewed, within the next 2 years, you may want to think about just going ahead and renewing it now so that you don't have to worry about it later on. And then just make sure that you meet with other offices on campus as applicable. So the CCI can be a really helpful office, not only in terms of internship opportunities abroad, but also if you're a pre-health student or another student on another professional path as well. They have really great advice for how to go about planning for exams and other things that you might need to do to prepare for further education, but still incorporating study abroad into that. SFS, as I mentioned, is really important just to make sure you have a good sense of what to expect financially. Parton, they can give you advice on travel vaccines if you have questions about that. And then ISSS, if you are an international student on campus, just to make sure everything is all set with your visa to come back to the US once you're finished with your time abroad.